How many of us have people in our lives that start a project, start a job, start a company, and within 6 months, they stop? Or the momentum or the energy isn't there, or they start a job and it wasn't what they thought it was going to be, so now they're looking for another position, another job. Or you have a leader that starts a project, initiates a vision, a goal, and what happens? It stops. Is that frustrating? Today, we're going to talk about why consistency is the most critical skill that people look for in leaders, and it's one of the leadership hacks that I wish I knew day one. Stick with us. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. I am your host, John Espinosa. Welcome, everybody, to the Leading Leaders podcast. Hey everyone, John here. Welcome to the Leading Leaders podcast. We're on season 6 still, leadership hacks. In today's episode, we're going to start and stay consistent with what we are talking about, and it all has to do with consistency. I had a great leader that I worked with, and they were the best innovator, the best person, big idea. I always called him Big Idea John. He had shared the same name as me. And he had these off-the-wall ideas about where the company was going, where the organization was going. I loved to do sessions with him and his team because the energy in the room was at an all-time high. Everybody loved those meetings because the whole entire room was either whiteboard or those glass marker boards, and we would start at one end and we would fill up the whole entire room with vision, ideas. Nothing was out of the realm of possibility when you were in one of John's meetings. Where he fell short, though, was implementation. He would start something and it would go well for about 3 to 6 months, and then the energy would fall off. Maybe they would lose somebody in the company. It wasn't a very large company. Or John himself, he would switch directions. There was something else that caught his eyes, like that squirrel. And I began to see the frustration in his team and his employees and the organization as a whole. I brought it up to John one day and I addressed the lack of consistency that I was seeing from an outsider looking in, from a friend of his. And John took that personal. He did. He was great. He had people around him that were idea generators, that were those visionaries like himself. But he didn't have enough implementers and enough systems that they put in place so the processes would stay consistent. The culture would stay consistent. The communication would stay consistent. And I don't know how many of you have been in a familiar place, but I can tell you that the frustration of inconsistency, what that brings to an organization, can sometimes be to the detriment of that organization. People start to leave, and then the leader begins to question themselves. And if an adjustment's not made, the business will fail. The organization will fail. The team will fail. The culture will fail. So today's episode, I'm hoping that you can take away one of the things that we're going to talk about to add to your consistency within your team, your organization, your family, your small business, whatever you are leading out there. Consistency is going to be important. So I've been in the leadership business for 15 plus years. I've mentored and coached leaders. I've developed training for leaders, and I've walked right beside you, the leader. And anytime that we can pour into ourselves by watching this podcast, by doing any kind of self-development, you just Google how to be consistent as a leader, and there will be several articles, several videos that talk about consistency and how important it is from a leadership standpoint. So I would encourage you to go out there after listening, take a look, see if something else fits your eye, or if this particular podcast brings value to you, give me a thumbs up. I'm always encouraged by the comments and the thumbs up or the thumbs down that I get, because that lets me know whether I'm on the right track, whether I'm delivering content. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. I want to be the first one to welcome you to the Go Be Great community. If you are a continued listener out there, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you spending the time with me. I try to keep these things short. digestible chunks of information, give you some takeaways, and then recap, share a couple experiences that I've had when it comes to the topic, and hopefully you will walk away with something that will make you a better leader and make us able to help others get to where they're going. So let's dig into how to be more consistent as a leader, as a father, as a son, as a parent, whatever consistency needs to bring or be in your life. I want you to think about that context as we're going through these 4, because it's important that it's not just a leader in a company or a leader in a team organization. Think of this maybe as a father or a mother who is out there leading your family. Maybe you're out there and you have a small business. You may only have a couple employees, but those employees need to see some type of consistency from you, their boss and leader. So the first one that we're going to talk about is being accountable. Accountability is one of those words that we like to throw around. We like to put on boards. We like vision boards. We like to put them in our mission statements, or maybe it's one of the values that you have. But let's operationalize that. Let's really dig into what accountability looks like. For me, accountability to myself looks like putting my head down and working, making sure that I myself do what I say and say what I do, making sure that I myself don't miss 2 days in a row, making sure that I myself understand the sacrifice that you're going to have to make to get to where you're going. I had to change some relationships when I decided to kick off this podcast, and I decided to start putting myself out there in a public format. I had to change my relationships. Whether it was some of my relationships with my friends, I had to let my family know the bigger vision of where I was going to make sure that they held me accountable. So when it comes to keeping ourselves accountable, that's where it starts. Because if we're not accountable to ourselves, the second piece to accountability to others, that's not going to work. If others don't see us being consistent with our accountability, they are never going to allow us to hold them accountable. I've always had a motto where I've put my head down and I've worked in anything that I've done. Any one of my businesses, my work, my family life. I would never ask anyone to do something that I wouldn't do myself or that I have already done myself. Because that's what accountability is to me. And how I hold others accountable is asking them, how do you see you holding yourself accountable when it comes to XYZ, when it comes to doing your homework, when it comes to making whatever grade that you want to make, maybe achieving a certification, maybe meeting a financial goal, whatever that is, they need to have some stake in the game to where it's not just us holding them accountable. Well, Dad, you didn't wake me up for school, or boss, you forgot to remind me that report was due on Friday. So you can see where I'm going and why accountability is a big part of how we remain consistent, how we ensure that we're doing the things necessary, and it may be incremental. That's the part with accountability. Don't think of it as we got to make these big changes. I've told the story before about getting up earlier in the morning and holding yourself accountable. If you create a big lofty goal and you can't sustain that goal, back to inconsistency you go. Back to, you're good on Monday, Tuesday, but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you start slacking off. You start waking up just a little bit later and later. Or a lot of people start great on Monday at work, and then what happens by Friday? They're so burnt out because they haven't remained consistent throughout the week that Friday's a wash. Friday, you might as well not even plan anything on Friday because you are just so overstimulated. You're so burnt out because you haven't held yourself accountable throughout the week and you haven't held others accountable. So now the stress is back on you, making sure that the job gets done, especially if you're running a small business, because it's your small business. You're the one that is going to have to figure out how to pay the bills. So accountability to yourself and accountability to others, they go hand in hand, and it starts with you. And that's going to help you stay more consistent, ensure that things are getting done in the week, Monday through Friday or Monday through Sunday. We tend to think in 5-day weeks, but there are some people out there working 7 days a week. I have a 5-day-a-week job, but I also do things on the weekends. And there's many of you out there that I know are working long hours, long days, just to put food on the table. You're staying accountable to yourselves and you're staying accountable to others, your family, by doing that. Kudos to you. So stay consistent through accountability. The second one I mentioned earlier, and a lot of these I start with accountability first, because when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. My team knows that. And if I don't do it, I'm going to hold myself accountable and I'm going to call myself out. Hey, I dropped the ball on that. I dropped the ball on, making sure that the process got implemented, or I dropped the ball on making sure that the impact to the deadline was communicated. Or maybe it's, hey, I dropped the ball paying the electric bill to keep the lights on. That's on me. I said I was going to do it. I didn't get it done. Goes back to people counting on us, holding us accountable to make sure that we do the things necessary to keep the lights on, to keep the doors open, to keep everything running so that way they can do their job. The last thing that I want my team to worry about is whether they have a job or whether they're going to get furloughed or fired. That is the very last thing I want people to have in their back of their mind, because how can you do anything else in an organization when you have fear of reprisal? Maybe you have a leader out there that comes down on you pretty hard because you miss a deadline or you didn't say what they wanted to hear. Or maybe you're that leader out there. Catch yourself next time. Next time that you make a comment on a meeting, on a call, ask yourself, would I say that to somebody that I love? Would I say that to somebody that I care about? And if the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't be saying it to anybody else. It goes back to that emotional intelligence, that high EQ. So say what you're going to do and do what you're going to say. Actions speak louder than words. People will do as you do, not necessarily as you say. So if your actions don't meet your spoken words, people are going to see that inconsistency there. And whether they call you out or not, as a leader, as a friend, as a husband, as a wife, they're going to start pulling back. They're going to start pulling back. So next time that you tell them that you're going to be at practice on Friday, or you're going to make it to their scrimmage or their game, or you'll be at their daughter or son's birthday, or you're going to make sure that you show up for such and such meeting or an event that is planned, or even if you say that you're going to have lunch on a certain day with somebody and you don't show up, it might not happen the first time, but over and over again, you're going to be inconsistent with saying what you're going to do and doing what you're going to say, but you are going to show them that you are very consistent when it comes to not being able to be depended on. What do you want to be known for? Make sure that you say what you're going to do and do what you're going to say. The third thing, and I love this, I started this back the beginning of the year, and it was one of my non-negotiables. And it was don't miss 2 days in a row. Everybody has a bad day, whether that is a workout regimen or eating healthy or a report that you need to get done by a certain day and you got to work on it incrementally. Anything that you have in your life that you have created a goal, you've created a milestone, you've said that you're going to go do, back to consistency, right? We got to stay consistent. The most consistent people show up time and time and time again. They do the little things that it takes to make sure that they get the job done when it comes to consistency. I can't tell you how many times that I've come home from work and I've came up with all of these excuses why I didn't need to get out into the gym in the garage and do a little bit of workout, do a little bit of cardio, whatever it was that day. Sometimes even like at 9:30, 10 o'clock, I put on my workout clothes and I go out there because I don't miss 2 days in a row. Personal development. Yeah, I have bad days. I feel sorry for myself. I don't need, I don't want to hear about how I can fix my problems. I just want to wallow in the mud right now. I just want to be in my own misery and my own agony. I do have those days, leaders, and that's okay. That's all right. It's okay for us to be human because that is part of our being. Not every day is going to be sunshine and roses. But guess what? Don't have 2 bad days in a row. That next day, pick yourself up. Figure out how you're going to motivate yourself to get going again. Fail fast. Failure is an option. Create those lessons learned and then move on to the next. So the third thing, don't miss 2 days in a row. And the last one, and this is one that I have really is newer to me. I've created 2-day segments within a 24-hour period. So let me explain this. And I can't take credit for this all. I listened to a podcast by Ed Millett. He does 3-day segments. He's a workaholic. He's a maniac. He's my hero. I envy him. I'm just doing 2 days, but I do a 6 a.m. to noon day and then a noon to 6 p.m. day. So you're asking yourself, John, it's still 12 hours. It's still within one day. Here's where the trick is. Here's where the hack is. Here's how I use that 2-day segment within a 24-hour to keep me consistent. So from 6 a.m. to noon, I start that day how I would any other day. Whether I'm exercising, whether it's a mindset, kind of personal development, be with myself, meditation, journaling, whatever you want to do. Or if you just want to get right into work, that's fine too. And I will do those tasks, whatever I have planned for that 6 hours, take a break in the middle, 30-minute hour break, whatever that day looks like for you. And then at noon, it's like Groundhog Day. It is like a brand new day for me. So I can have a different goal for that second part of the day. If I didn't get my workout done in the first part of the day, guess what? Don't miss 2 days in a row. I'm getting my workout in that second segment, in that 12 noon to 6 p.m. I'm doing my workout. So that way, over time, we are building consistency in those days. And we can even look at them. So think about this for a minute. Think about this out there, because I know there's some people that are still on the fence about this. They're like, John, you're crazy. I barely get through one day. Why would I want to have 2 days in 24 hours? Listen to me here. This is the trick. I can set 2 separate things that I want to do. So for example, on Monday, maybe I work out, and Tuesday's my off day, and then Wednesday I do a workout. Or, if you're eating, you got maybe your big meals on Monday, Wednesday, however you're breaking things up. Or maybe you're working on a project and you got the kickoff meeting, and then you start doing your stakeholder, your budget, your planning, whatever that looks like. Or maybe as a parent, right? You have to take the kiddos to school in the morning, and then you have to go to work, and then in the evening you have practices. Whatever your day looks like, if you divide it up into 2 separate days, guess what? Now you've just increased that efficiency, because I can even break it up if you have a significant other and say, okay, I got the morning, so that's my morning routine, but then from my noon to 6 p.m., that's a me routine. So maybe your wife, your husband, they have the ball, they have the practices, and I can alternate that throughout the week. So now instead of, oh, well, I got to take Susie to practice or Johnny to practice, there goes my afternoon, but you have the morning session. And then vice versa, if it flips, maybe you take them to school the next day. So yeah, that takes 30, 45, an hour out of your time. But then you have the afternoon session to work on yourself or get the things done that you need to do. It's just a different way of thinking. And it has created so much consistency in my routines and the things that I want to do. This podcast is a prime example. If I don't get it recorded early in the morning, I do it in the second segment of the day, because I want to make sure that I have a podcast recorded, so that way you all aren't missing this. That way I don't get emails and messages around, hey John, I missed your podcast today, right? I want to show up consistently for you all, because you deserve it. I said I was going to do this, and I am going to do it. So that's how I can do it with those 2 6-hour segments within a 24 hours. And then the other, time is for rest and rejuvenation. So that way we can get up. And I jam pack those 6 hours with things to get done. That's just how I am. Maybe for you do 6 hours, do a 2 to 3 hour break, and then do 6 more hours, right? However you want to break it up, I would leave that up to you, the variability, how you want to adapt that schedule. And I would even encourage you to go listen to Ed. Ed Milet, you can probably Google it up, and he has a great podcast around it. And I believe he's writing it in his new book. I'm excited about his new book. But whatever that looks like, it is going to create consistency for you. So those 4 things I want you all to walk away from this podcast with: number one, be accountable to yourself and others. Number two, do what you say and say what you're going to do. That goes back to accountability. It makes sure that we are showing up for ourselves and for others in a consistent manner. The third one, don't miss 2 days in a row. This is critical to making sure that you're consistent. And then last but not least, break your 24-hour day into segments where you can now be efficient in that time, and then give yourself a break or put them back to back and create 2 days, 2 full work days in one. And I promise you that's going to go a lot for your mindset, and others are going to start paying attention. You'd be surprised. Do this for me. Do that for 6 months. Commit to yourself for 6 months. Those 4 things, and people are going to notice. You won't even have to tell them. People are going to come to you and they're going to ask what you are doing. I promise you. And it's going to feel good. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate you all spending time with me. Again, to those new listeners, give me a thumbs up. To the existing listeners, thank you very much. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment. If you have any questions, I get to all of those and I read them personally myself. Go be great. We'll talk to everyone later. Bye-bye. If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor. Click on that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great. Talk to everyone later.